Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video I'm going to discuss with you one little thing that you might have missed of your prepper's pantry. Have you guessed it yet? Here we are. This is bread. And we're not talking about bread is in bread because yes, of course guys, you can freeze bread. That's it really, you can freeze bread or you can make your own. We are today talking about breadcrumbs. Have you potentially thought of stocking up some breadcrumbs in your stockpile or in your kitchen cupboard? Maybe, maybe not. I'll tell you why. Anyway, we have had a lovely sunny day today, so I've used an opportunity to use our solar panel and I have decided to dehydrate some bread because I bought some on sale in Tesco's the other day and it was reduced to 31p per loaf. You can buy normal supermarkets bread, I think around between 30 and 40p, so it's really cheap enough considering the breadcrumbs are quite pricey. So I've been doing the breadcrumbs for ages and I've been trying to stock up on them, especially recently. Every time I see the bread on sale, excuse me, I buy some and I do breadcrumbs. I don't have to necessarily run the oven if I don't want to, and quite often if there's no solar power, which I use my dehydrator for, I use the and spread around the bread in the oven. And normally if you're cooking something, if you're cooking dinner, if you know you're going to be cooking dinner for a couple of days, put a little tray underneath and just let them cook. Of course they might not potentially finish cooking along the same time as you're finished cooking your dinner, whatever you're cooking or baking bread, whatever. However, there'll still be a start and you still save a little bit electricity. Otherwise, to be fair, and I've done this before, you can just literally run the oven with like, I don't know, a few loaves of bread. And yes, of course, it's going to take you a good maybe 4 hours, but at the moment electricity prices are not as high as they will be. So if you choose to do this, if you get really cheap bread, then it kind of works out to be still cheaper than buying breadcrumbs. So anyway, so after dehydrating the bread, it literally becomes, it sounds hollow. There's many ways of doing this, right? Well, two ways of doing that. You either dehydrate your bread and then you pulse this into a powder. Okay, I got this stuff, not powder, but basically a breadcrumb, but it is a really, really fine breadcrumb. Or you can actually blitz your bread first and then put this on a tray so the crumbs will be a little bit bigger. It's totally up to you and it actually depends of what you do with it. So for majority of the thing, I normally dehydrate that in whatever I'm dehydrating it for. And if I don't have time to pulse it and put this away in my little containers, I just put this in a little food container bag. I know, yes, it's full of air at the moment, but it'd be okay to sit there for a couple of days in a cupboard until I get time to basically process this and vacuum seal this. The vacuum sealed breadcrumbs will last you a very long time, including oxygen absorbers, so long as you do not put any oil in your bread, unlike we do when we're making a bread croutons. Well, I do anyway. So one of the other things, which is like a bonus point, is making your own bread croutons. Because guys, you might have seen the video, I've got a lot of the soup, dry soups, like powder soups, and they make really, really amazing cream soups. Sometimes it's really nice to have something on the top. And homemade croutons is really, really cool thing to do. It's basically very similar principle, but just rather than dehydrating your bread in the big chunks or pulsating it into the crumbs and then dehydrating this, you cut this into squares and you put this in the oven or the dehydrator. In this instance, I've done this with a little bit of olive oil and herbs already because I don't intend to sit in this for a really, really long time. However, if you do, then a plain bread without any oil or butter will work best. If you do not have electric food processor, then you can use pestle and mortar, which also gives you slightly, well, if you want a slightly bigger crumb. So you might think, well, why do I need breadcrumbs in my pantry? Well, to be fair, guys, we are talking about tough times. Tough times are coming, we all know this, right? And I've been doing the breadcrumbs for ages. Not at all that you can bread anything you want. You can bread fish, you can bread meat, you can sprinkle this on the top of salads, all sorts of things you can do with that. But the fact is, because it's saving you money, and it's a lot of carbs, right? It's an extra carb for me to keep in my cupboard. And because they're so kind of versatile, I know you'd really, really be surprised. I totally swear by the homemade breadcrumbs and the storage. And I think that's something potentially, if you're prepping, I think that's something you should do. Do not buy them, but make them. But find the bread cheap. find an opportunity to run your oven for whether you do your roast dinner or whatever, and then obviously do this on the cheap. It'll be far cheaper than paying like 80p for whatever packet that you get of the breadcrumbs anyway. So on the other side is, right, the most popular way for me to use the breadcrumbs, it is basically a Parmesan substitute. You might think, what? We're talking about cheese and we're talking about breadcrumbs. Well, in Italy, right, they call this a poor man's Parmesan. And basically that means that you put your breadcrumbs into the frying pan with desired herbs and spices and salt and pepper, and you make breadcrumbs. So let me show you how we do that now. And this is how I make mine. I take a little bit of olive oil. You guys can use butter or ghee, whatever you prefer. We put our breadcrumbs in. We put a selection of chosen spices. I've got oregano. And I have a mixture of salt and pepper. We'll give it a good old mix. And we wait for basically all those crumbs to absorb the butter or olive oil. If you need to add on more, then we will do so. And it smells amazing already. I think I need a little bit more. Oh, that smells so good. There we go. And we'll leave them here to cook. Keep mixing them until they're brown off. I think that's done. And we'll set it aside to cool down. So guys, this is the end result. And the Italians call it panna grattata, which is basically means breadcrumbs. You can do them to fit absolutely your style of cooking, your taste. As you've seen mine, I've just done the very basic salt and pepper and some oregano. You can add on chili powder. It literally depends, whatever your meal you're doing, you can add this on the top and it'll make a huge difference. Don't forget, you can add on the breadcrumbs to your, if you're making sausages and meatballs, that kind of thing. But we are literally talking for a hash times. And I have tried, right? And I know there's a one available, it's a Spam. It's basically meat substitute in a tin. Not substitute, but it's basically processed meat in a tin. And they do sell a Spam, like a breaded Spam and batter type thing, like a fish and chips batter. But I have tried this with breadcrumbs and it actually works. Yes, of course, guys, you need to have an egg, but there is a substitute we can use to basically breadcrumb anything. But it kind of adds, if you imagine yourself eating the same stuff and the boring things from the tin, those things there could certainly add on a huge amount of flavor. So if you guys have not thought of doing your own breadcrumbs or stocking your own breadcrumbs, then I strongly suggest you do. I really would like to know in the comments, guys, if you have had or have got any breadcrumbs in your stockpiling cupboard, because, well, I would like to know that I'm helping people. So anyway, please comment below. If you do like the video, don't forget to thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.